I'm Zibby Owens, and you're listening to the award-winning podcast, Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Please sign up for my newsletter at zibbyowens.com for updates on podcast guests and lots of live events. We made it to another Friday, everybody. I hope the week was okay for you and that everybody's feeling good and staying safe and just making it through one day at a time. I hope you have taken a few minutes in your busy weeks with your kids and your families and your loved ones, or even by yourself or whatever, and read the website I just launched called We Found Time, wefoundtime.com, which you can also find on zibbyowens.com, which is featuring exclusive essays, all original content written by authors who have been on this podcast, Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. I hope you enjoy reading them. They're about all the different things moms don't have time to do, like have sex, work out, eat, breathe, read. Hopefully you can relate and you'll enjoy them. Also, I hope you've been checking out my Instagram live show, which I'm calling ZIGTV, and that's on every day, Monday through Friday from 11 to 12. So I'm hoping my new content has been helping you through this quarantine. Feel free to reach out to me, Zibby at Zibby Owens, and please join my newsletter, which you can find on my website, zibbyowens.com. You can sign up there so you don't miss all the new essays that will come out each week, which I'm hoping will help you all in different ways. I know everybody connects differently to different material, so enjoy it. And I hope you've had a great week. I hope that some of the authors I've been bringing to you have helped in some way. And thanks for sticking with me. Have a great weekend. I'm here today with Ashley Prentice Norton, who's the author of novels The Chocolate Money and If You Left. A graduate of Georgetown and the creative writing program at NYU, she currently lives in New York with her husband and 3 children. So welcome, Ashley. Thanks for coming on Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Let's talk about The Chocolate Money first, if that's okay. So could you please tell listeners what that's about?
Well, it's sort of about your standard dysfunctional family with money and bad parenting. And I won't go into sort of the characters and stuff like that because everybody knows the arc.
It was so good. And as I've told you before, nice. I've had it for years. Since when did it come out? I can't remember.
2012?
2012.
Yeah.
And I read it actually with my book group.
That is amazing. That's like amazing to hear. That's so, because you hear people say, I loved your book. And then you're like, did they read it?
Yeah, no, I read it. Of course
so
I read
sweet.
it. No, and it was.
And this book came out forever ago. I'm like, are you sure you want me on your podcast? I mean, you don't have to be polite. And then I realized, like, this is a big deal. This is a big deal to be on your podcast. So I'm really grateful.
Oh, don't be silly. But it's even better that I read it a long time ago because now I don't have another book that I have to read.
Exactly.
So I'm like, I got to do more of this. Let's go through all my past books.
Right, exactly, exactly.
Time. So when you wrote The Chocolate Money, what inspired you to write this book? This was your first book.
This was my first book. And I guess, I mean, people ask if it was autobiographical. I do have a really colorful mom. And that's kind of what got it started. I mean, I guess at the time I didn't really have an active imagination. And, you know, I think the tone in sort of the book, I think, was very true, but there was a lot of sort of I'm 17 vibe to it, and what did my parents do to me wrong? Mm-hmm. And now that I'm a parent, I'm like, oh my God, this is how I'm parenting, you know? And my mom, thank goodness, has, I think, forgiven me, because people who don't know her thought every single word was true, you know, which it wasn't.
So in the book, you talk about the mom character as Babs.
Yeah, exactly.
She is a larger-than-life character with these giant parties and just over-the-top everything.
Yeah.
That is alternately funny, but also sort of crushing to the character in the book.
Right.
To have a mom like that.
Right.
And then I read that after it came out, so she stopped talking to you.
Exactly.
Because she thought it was all about her. And there were some things people thought.
Yes.
See, I would feel like for someone who, I'll go on a limb and say maybe a more like narcissistic type personality.
Right.
That they would like love that.
Well, I guess, but it was pretty harsh to have your daughter. I mean, I guess if my daughter wrote a book like that about me, I'm not sure I'd read it, because I feel like, okay, it's your interpretation. You know, you're like, I would read it.
No, I'm thinking if my daughter wrote a book like that about me, I would be so upset.
Well, exactly.
Any book about me that wasn't completely 100% flattering, I'd be like, you're out.
Well, now that I've changed her, you ruined my life. I hate you. I'm the most neglected. Because I have 3. And so there's all that going on. And so I'm like, oh my God, that's what I was like. And now that I've been, you know, done the work, or whatever, been to therapy. I mean, it's gross to talk about therapy, but I just am kind of like, you know what? You've got to get over that. You're almost 50 years old. And there's a lot of good stuff there that I'm picking on certain stuff, but there's so much good stuff. And my mom has like such a sense of fun, and she's so stylish, and the things that she did, like people weren't doing. Like the best thing about my mom is she doesn't care in the good sense. She wasn't saying like, what do people think of me? She had like a freedom, and I didn't give her credit for that. I was like looking at my side of the story always, and I just have such a better appreciation for it. And I don't judge anybody's parenting anymore. I really don't, because I've seen some kids that have developed major like issues, problems, and I see these parents and they are trying. They are in there working hard. And it wasn't, and the kid will say, oh, it's because I didn't have a good nanny. These are like just kind of gross things. But anyway, I feel like I try to be far less judgmental.
I feel like the more kids I have, the more I doubt my own influence over their development at all.
Oh, exactly.
I feel like maybe like 80% of them is completely out of my control. They just are who they are. They're like born that way. And I could mess them up. So sometimes I'm like, it's like first do no harm type of parenting.
Exactly.
Like, just don't ruin this kid. She's already great. So,
Exactly. And I try to work from the point of kindness and just taking a breath. And that really helps when I don't yell. I'm not a yeller, but just bring my voice down. And, and I found it in arguments. Somebody told me once, people aren't listening to what you're saying. They're listening to what they're saying. So it doesn't matter if I'm like this. I say, you sound really upset that you thought I was doing this. And it's kind of our culture now. It's like the kid's always right. But then my kids kind of come around. And then when I ask like the child, like, you didn't get me the Valentine's I liked. Like, really? Anyway, so it's made my parenting a lot happier when I don't try to argue with them about their feelings and their perception of what kind of job I'm doing. Because I'm confident I know I'm doing the best I can,
And Ashley, I did not know this whole part of your history before I was researching you for this podcast, and I didn't know that you had manic depression and that you had been through all of this stuff while a parent. And even the headline of this article that you wrote in Redbook called Mom Interrupted, the headline I'm just going to read says, "Manic depression pushed Ashley Prentice Norton to the brink of suicide. It took 6 months, her husband's love, and 17 rounds of electroshock therapy to bring her back to her kids alive." Oh my gosh. And then, of course, the article follows, which was like insane. And this is the best quote, I thought. After you sort of come through it, you write, "Now when I play the simple melodies of family life, getting my girls' tights on in the morning, brushing my son's hair, deciding on a restaurant for a night out with my husband, each one sounds to me like a perfect concerto. Even when we're all dead tired, frustrated, or fighting, I can still hear the song." That's so amazing.
Well, the irony of that is the concerto and song part my editor wrote.
I love your editor.
She's amazing.
Your editor is such a great writer.
She put that in there, and I was kind of like, it doesn't sound like me and the music thing. So I'll have to tell her, because she put that in there, and she's brilliant. She's a good friend of mine too. So
I'll have to have her on next.
Exactly. She's great. She's an editor, not a writer. Exactly. But I'm just saying she's a good editor. So
but the feeling was yours, which is that you appreciate the everyday moments now so much more. So tell me a little more. What was that like? And I read about it, but
It was brutal. I had a mania, and then I fell into this depression. It just snapped like that. It turned, and I literally could not watch TV. I couldn't read books. We went to a play once, and it was half over, and I was like, okay, great, time to leave. And I couldn't. And I couldn't sit through the rap, but I did, and then I would kind of drop the kids off at school, and what else happened? Literally, I don't have memories. It just, they're wiped out. And finally I said, I have to go. This isn't working. And I would go and I talked to people who went there and I was like, it's going to get better. And this lasted for 2 months. And it was just brutal. And we tried everything and different medications. And one time I thought, I'm like, I'm going to get out there and do something. Because people were talking about exercise. So I went to SoulCycle and a friend of mine started it. And so I'm on my bike and I'm like, okay, I'm trying. And then I left and I get home and Elizabeth had sent me a plant. Like, that's how bad I looked. Like, she could tell that she was just like, I was like, I thought that was a good day. But yeah, and tights were terrifying, getting the clothes on. And I couldn't. Anyway, so finally I just said, I have to go to the hospital. We have to try something else. And I'd heard about electric shock, and they don't know anything about it. It's like turning the TV on and off, kind of rebooting a computer. So, but the hospital was terrifying too, because I would see the TV and it was House, you know, and there's like this creepy man with the cane. I couldn't watch it. I'm like creeping by there. And so anyway, we tried this, and it's in the article, but I was just terrified because they strap you on this thing and they put this thing on your mouth, and you can't even see the person that's administering shocks. But every time I would wake up and they would say, please let it be gone, please let it be gone, and it wouldn't be gone. Oh. And so I got out of the hospital. I don't remember this really, and it wasn't really gone. I mean, my brother, when he got married, I had to leave the ceremony after the ceremony was complete, get in bed, and ask my husband to bring me some wedding cake. That's how sad it was. Anyway, so I tried to get out. I got out of there, and I was still feeling down. But finally, it got better, and finally I recovered. But it took a long time. It was a year before I could read a book, and that's my life. And it was a mass mark. The only thing I can do, this is really weird, I could write. That's the only thing I could do. And I finished my book at my brother's wedding, like the day I landed, October 31st. And so bizarre, right?
Wow.
So I guess that did get me through. It was the only thing I could do.
That's amazing.
Who knew? Yeah.
So that's when you were writing The Chocolate Money.
Yes.
And then you wrote another novel after that.
Yes.
Which, I'm not done with this. I'm not done with this part of your life, because this is so, tragic, but so inspiring that you could get through it, and that you had to deal with your kids at the same time too, right?
It's a blur. But the thing was, my husband said, which I didn't know. Family members flew in, friends came in. We had a huge support network. So he wasn't, he's a rock star. But he was telling me this because my daughter sadly said, at 5 years old, she just remembered this, right? And it impacted them, obviously. But kind of, for me, I was like, I didn't really want to have the conversation. And I was here if they wanted to bring it up, but I kind of felt it was narcissistic in a way to be like, let's talk about me and my depression, like maybe when they were older, but and maybe that was the wrong approach. But yeah, so I finally came out of it. But yeah, my book was a mass market paperback at Target that I could read. But yeah, I wrote The Chocolate Money and finished it during this.
It's like how you hear about so many artists that have manic depression. Isn't there like a whole history of different artists like that it comes hand in hand with like massive creativity?
Well, I was thinking about this, and I think that's a flawed premise.
Oh, okay.
Because
I take it back.
I think people have this conception that when you're manic, and you feel invincible, you feel creative, and and a professor pointed this out to me, most of what's produced is like gobbledygook. Okay. I filled a whole notebook with my impressions of Talented Mr. Ripley and that movie. But my theory is, if you're brilliant to begin with, like a Picasso or something like that, it can open up them. But if you're not brilliant to begin with, it's not going to make you brilliant.
I didn't mean to suggest.
Well, no. But people think, like, if only I'm manic depressive, I could be a writer. People do.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
and, for me, it was just really detrimental to my writing. I read some of the stuff and people were like, get to the point already. Because I was manic when I was writing it originally. And then when I got depressed, that's when I finished it and I wrote a lot.
This is a really stupid question. No. And I was a psych major way back when, and I feel like I'm pretty well educated. But bipolar versus manic depression.
It's the same thing. I prefer manic depression because bipolar is a little cleaner and PC.
Okay.
But it's the same thing.
Okay. I thought so. But then I was like, maybe it's not. Maybe
no, it's the same thing.
Okay. Wow. Okay, so to your second novel. So you have this book, which is amazing. And by the way, when I remembered it, I was sure it was a memoir. And then I was like, wait, does it say a novel in the bottom left corner? Anyway.
First book, rookie mistake, whatever.
No, it was so good and just really captured what it's like to feel that way as a young child and how it ends up shaping your life.
Yeah.
Then what made you write your second novel?
Well, this is funny because I sold it. I wrote an outline. And it was going to be about a nanny working with a mom it was based on basically a mom that I know. Her child drowned when she went inside to get a drink or something. It was unbelievable. Like, how do you get past that? And I was like, I got to write about this. And so, and I don't believe in like stealing somebody's story. It wasn't that. It was just like that scream. I can only imagine coming out and seeing that. So I was going to write about sort of this and how the mother was manic. There was a bad nanny involved who was an entitled kid from New York City. And so my agent sold that. Like,
Yeah.
So I started to write it. And then I'm like, well, I don't know how to make this happen. And I totally changed it. It was totally different. And I didn't bother to tell anybody, like my editor or Bill. Bill Clegg is my agent, who I could give a whole interview about him. But he was really
He's coming on my show. Yeah. I have his book right here.
Yes.
Yes. Wait, I have to find it. It's right here.
The end of the day. Oh my God.
Yeah. Do you see it?
All
yeah,
happy roads. All happy roads to often lead to Bill Clegg. I mean, I have a funny story about him about the chocolate money.
His
oh my
memoir.
God. Does everyone? Portrait of an Addict is
was so good. Oh my gosh. Anyway.
So he was like, Ashley, you can't do that. And I said, well, I did. I said, well, it's finished. And he said, well, you're going to have to call Lauren, because I'm not calling her. I said, fine. So I call her and I said, Lauren, there's good news and good news. And she said, what is it? And I said, well, I finished the novel and it's much better than the original novel was going to be, which I really felt it was. And so she's like, okay. So then she really liked it.
Oh.
And Bill was like, you can't do that. You don't. But it's like, it's not nonfiction. I mean, I don't write from outlines. It's just, that's kind of how, I mean, I cringe when people say process, but that's kind of how I write.
You just sit down and do it.
Well, I just see what happens. I don't believe like my characters take control or whatever. It's just the way my mind works and the way you just don't know. You go for a walk in the woods and you don't know where you're going.
So when you write, do you just write whenever the mood strikes you?
No. I believe in, somebody told me this, or whatever, maybe one of those artist way things I love. And I believe in timed writing, but like 3 hours. Somebody told me, I have a cousin who's a painter, and she said, you can't do any more creative work more than 3 hours. At least she couldn't. So like, that's a good time. You go and you sit down for 3 hours, and then you see what happens. If you write one word, that's your 3 hours. If you write, and that way you don't get caught up in 20,000, whatever word count is. So that's what I do. And I try to do it 4 days a week. And I go down to the writer's room.
Oh, okay.
Oh my God, I'm obsessed with that place.
I haven't been there.
It's amazing. And they have a nap room and they have a kitchen and you can eat at your desk. It's amazing. But my thing is, I think you should leave your apartment because then I should leave my apartment because then there's no, well, I'm going to tidy up or my kids are there. So libraries are great. I do the New York Society Library. I've been to the Main Library. I've been to the East Hampton Society or East Hampton Library. So that's really important for me. That's my tip about, so don't wait, at least for me, I mean, if you wait for the mood to strike, anyway, for me, it's never going to strike. But I also feel like I shouldn't push myself if I'm not in the place where I can take on 4 days a week or anything.
So are you working on anything now?
Well, I'm working on something I call creepy guys who do really bad things. So I've been reading tons of British psychological thrillers.
Okay.
So like Lisa Jewell. So I really want to break into that genre. So that's kind of what I'm working on. So I've been reading tons of books about that and like character studies about creepy men who do whatever dangerous things. I don't know what the title is. That's not going to be the title, but you can see where I'm going with that.
That's a funny title.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds great.
Yeah.
So and you're doing your whole 12 hours a week or how many?
Well, not right now. I'm still kind of researching and thinking about it and stuff because I tried it before and I was like, I don't really know. But now I'm like, ask me anything about creepy men who do bad things and I can tell you.
So do you worry you're going to go into another mania or depression, or do you feel like you have it under control? Like, I feel like I know from my past times, like of any mood swings or, am I going to go into this? I'm more like, have more anxiety than anything, but is this going to be like, am I going to have it under control? Am I not? Like, do you worry about that? Like,
I don't.
You don't?
Because I really believe in the mind-body connection. And I think if I'm sitting around worrying about it, it'll probably happen. And I have great doctors. And so if I feel a little bit coming on, we tweak the meds. And what's the use worrying about it? I mean, I can't do anything about it. I mean, I'm careful with my sleep and my diet and exercise and trying to keep, I'm lucky that I'm not working a job that's huge stress. I have one daughter at home, so I can leave like nap. So what am I going to do?
I mean, you could feel a totally different way. I mean,
I get it. I've come to the point in my life where they say, I know that 90% of stuff I worry about or even higher never happens.
Yeah.
So I'm trying, I'm still a huge worrier, but I'm trying not to do that.
I love that.
My dad called it catastrophizing or scripting. Why do that?
Yeah.
Because worry really doesn't cause anything. It doesn't help.
I know that. I know, logically.
Right.
Yeah, I'm working on it too. I feel like I'm getting better as I get older, like mellowing out a little bit, I hope. I mean, kind of. Do you have any other parting advice to aspiring authors?
A.M. Holmes once said to me, she doesn't have writer's block because she doesn't believe in it. She's like, there's no such thing, which helps me. I already said, go somewhere else. Writing is the good part. Publishing, it's a whole different thing. They're bifurcated. So, and if you don't have to do it, don't, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? Like, if it's something that you don't do and you're kind of like, I really should be doing that, it's more painful not to do it than it is to do it. If you're writing, if you're really believing yourself as a writer, you'll feel pain when you're not doing it. And you know that doing it is the right thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thanks for sharing your story. Sorry for delving into your emotional state and asking you all these personal questions.
Not at all.
I'm sorry. So
if it helps somebody, that's great. That's my.
Somebody who knows somebody or.
Yeah, that's been the only reason now to really share it.
Yeah. And your books are so good. This book was so good. The Chocolate Money.
Thank you.
Seriously. So I'm just so thrilled that I get to talk to you.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much, Zibby. I really appreciate it.
You've been listening to Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books with Zibby Owens. Please make sure to sign up for my newsletter at zibbyowens.com to get more updates about episodes like these and also lots of live events. Thanks again for listening today, everybody. And don't forget to check out wefoundtime.com. And it's also available on zibbyowens.com as a tab, but also at wefoundtime.com. Check out the essays and go to Instagram at Zibby Owens and check out my Instagram lives 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. every weekday, Monday to Friday during this quarantine where I interview 4 to 5 authors live for a few minutes each. Please check it out and thanks for listening. I really appreciate it. You can follow me on Instagram at Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Thanks so much to Steve and Ryan at Texture Sound for the sound editing. And thank you to Morning Moon Productions for providing this fantastic intro and outro music. Thanks for listening. You could always email me at zibby@zibbyowens.com.